Hello, Algebra 2. This video lesson is called a continuation of the material from Chapter 5.8 because I'm continuing on with what I've talked about from that chapter, but this is a separate lesson and a separate video because in this case I'm going to be talking about the use of the graphing calculator. So if you don't have a graphing calculator handy at this point, I suggest you hit the pause button and go grab one. And I'm going to move forward assuming that you've already done that and that you have one handy. If you don't, you're going to need to follow along with me. I will show you my graphing calculator. If you have a friend handy with a graphing calculator, the two of you can be watching this together. Let's assume that you've got a set of data and that you're going to use the graphing calculator's function called the quadratic regression function to try to best model that data. You've looked at it either by drawing it yourself on graph paper and you've seen that it looks like it arrays itself in a curve, whether it's this shape or that shape, or you've actually entered it into the calculator and the calculator has shown you that shape. One way or another, you're going to ask the calculator not only to draw a curve, a parabola, that best represents that shape, but also to find out what the equation for that quadratic is. So here's some data that does exactly that. I've taken this data straight from the textbook, average driving speeds, and the miles per gallon you get at each of those different driving speeds. I've talked in class before about the idea that car engines tend to be optimized to drive at a particular speed. And like this shows, you start relatively low at 22 miles per gallon, and then it climbs and it hits this peak in here of around 30 miles per gallon, and then it starts going back down. I'm going to move this data over to the side so that I can pull up and you can see my graphing calculator. So there it is, and I'm going to show you how to enter the data in case you've forgotten, but I've actually already entered the data in here myself so that you don't have to wait and watch me do it. So again, you would hit the Stat and Edit or Enter buttons, and as you can see, I've got my data here. If you don't, then hit the pause, of course you don't, hit the pause button, type this data in, and when you come back, I'm going to show you the next step. Okay, I'm going to assume that you did that, and that you've got it all the way down to, like I said, 70 miles per hour and 25.3 miles per gallon at that speed. And the next thing to do is to see what that data looks like. Well, let's go to the y equals screen before we do anything else and recognize that I at least have some old equations in here, and you may too. If you do, clear those out. Hit clear for each of those y equals that is showing something now. If you don't clear those out, then the calculator is going to show those on top of your points from this story about miles per gallon, and it's going to be very confusing. The other thing is, remember, these are just plotted points at this stage of the game, so you need to turn plot points on. The easiest way is, as before, scroll up to plot 1, hit enter, and come down, and now plot points is on. Now, if you hit graph from this stage, then like me, you might not see anything because my window is set right now to the factory standard settings, and I want instead to zoom in on the data that I have. Remember, if I hit zoom 9 from this point, then I get to see my plotted points. And now you see what I mean about this curve shape that's happening here. Okay, from here, we're going to use the power of the calculator to try to fit a curve to that set of points. Let's go back to y equals. And just like before, we've got to hit Stat, go over to Calc here. Remember that previously we did linreg, that was for linear regression. Now we're doing a quadratic regression, so we're going to want to hit 5. Now, if you have the newer software, your screen probably says more information than mine does here. But one way or another, and in my case I would just hit enter, we want the calculator to tell us what that quadratic regression is that best fits this curving set of data. Okay, well now I know what the equation is, but it's still not really in the calculator for it to show me on its graphing function. So from here I've got to hit y equals again. And remember, from this screen, I hit bars. And I still hit 5 for statistics. And I still go over to EQ. EQ stands for equation, and I am wanting an equation. And I do want a regression equation, so reg EQ is still the right choice, just like back in the days of linear regressions. And there it is. There is the linear regression that best fits this data about miles per hour and miles per gallon. So roughly, roundly speaking here, it's negative 0.008 x squared plus roughly 0.75 x plus roughly 13.5. That's my equation. If you want to see what that looks like, hit graph from this stage, and it will draw that curve right on top of that set of data. That's all there is to it, and that's all there is to this video lesson.